Hi and welcome to this week's video. In this video I put the rear plywood sides on. Not too much detail on that because it was covered in the last video. Link up there. And I secure the front edge of the fin, which is just a little bit complex, and it's the whole area there. There's still got work to be done, but at least it's secure. So let's see how I do it all. Come on. I've drawn a line here going back level with the top of the longeron, and there's a line going along the edge of the rudder post there, about 1/16 of an inch down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a sanding block and sand from there to there at an angle till I get rid of that 1/16 line, to try and just fair this down a little bit, and I'll then sand in here just to roughen up the surface of this the glue, which the squeeze out. I will cut this end off now that we're at that point, dead in line with the bottom plate here, and then we're ready to glue the skin on. I'll just take this frame out of the way, well, the clamps out of the way, and we'll glue the frame on, the sheet on this side all the way down for now. Well, there it is, all bonded on, clamped along the top edge, clamped with a straight piece of wood there along the rudder post, and the front there all weighted down. I even got Jamie in on the act there, little character that was made for me by one of my students at one point. You'll have a laugh at that one. In the last video showed that we had a bit of gap between the ply and the bottom because the wood supplied by Fisher just wasn't quite deep enough. So I've just put in this 1/8 of an inch thick piece of strip wood and bonding that into place, and that can then be cut back at the same time as I cut the excess off the side skin there. I've run an edging router bit along the edges of the plywood bottom section here. The top was just as it's laid out, so it's probably just a little bit of a sanding, just make sure it's flush with the top longerons, and I will do a little bit of a round over once we've actually got the turtle deck made. I'll do a little bit of a sort of rounding over of the very edge, so it's not a super sharp edge, the same way as I will do along the bottom here at some stage. But I've just trimmed back all the way along to here, so we've got that side shape in position, and that little fill piece that I put in there, I've just gone along that with the edge router to get things sorted out. It's all what looks like a gap, isn't that's all filled with the resin there. It will let everything cure off really fully before we sort of sand and really clean everything up, and go on to the inside. The next stage for me is to turn this little lot over and do the other side. I've done a little bit of prep now for putting the other side on. Side skin, which is just sitting up there at the moment, has had its sanding in the areas where it makes contact, the same as we did for this, and I've chamfered this edge down by the 1/16 of an inch, trailing edge here, so it's in line. So there's a little slight step that's there, the same as it was on the other side. Again, that'll be filled with a bulking agent in the resin just along that edge, which I'm using cotton flocks to act as a bulking agent because it makes it semi-structural. Then everything else will be just straightforward resin, except for the very edge of this joint here. I'll I'll put a bit of a fill in there with resin and sawdust, just to take up any gap if there is any, after I've bonded the skin down onto there. So the skin will go onto that with standard resin, weighted down, and then I'll just go along the edge with a bit of resin and filled with sawdust, because it makes it easy to stand and just bulks it up enough so it doesn't run out going along there. The bulking agent, so I'm just going to show you the sort of mix that I get up to. This is the cotton flocks. I mix it in a bit at a time, like that. Get it sort of to a, I suppose, peanut buttery sort of state, like that. In fact, I've got that pretty much sorted in one go. And then the important factors is you must prime the area. Let me sort of show you. You must prime the joint, both sides, with the standard resin mix before you put in a bulked agent, because the bulked agent will stop it, hasn't got the resin to penetrate into the surface. So you want to prime it with the standard resin mix so that sinks into the surface a little bit, and then put your bulking agent in. That's really key to getting a good strong joint. Okay, I'll crack on and get this lot finished. In this case, I'm building up a filler sander type bulking agent, just to fill in gaps. This is non-structural, where the cotton flocks is. It's just a case of, again, mixing it up. You want the similar sort of consistency. Oh, one of the things I didn't say about putting the bulking agents on, I put the standard resin on, and then I let it soak in for a few minutes while I make up these compounds, and then I wipe off quite a lot of the resin, so there's very little of the original just plain standard resin mix. Otherwise it ends up with thinning down the bulking agent one. If there's anything left on the surface, they wipe off the excess and then apply this to the surface. Another little tip for you, if you're doing a job where you might need to change gloves halfway through, is what I do is I put 2 pairs of gloves on, like that. So I've got protection just in case I get a little bit sort of spattered over. But the main thing is, my hands get very sweaty in these gloves, where if I have one pair on, I can slide the next pair on without having to try and dry my hands out to be able to get, if you ever try to get these sort of gloves on when your hands are wet and sweaty, it's a real pain. Of cleaning up the excess glue, I'm just using a little block. It's got some 80 grit on it currently. So going up and down the sides, and then once I've gone all the way around the edges to get rid of the sort of excess squeeze out, I'm using the tool here with 120 grit and then 240 grit, just to smooth the surface of the plywood ready for painting. Right, working out this rear bulkhead. If I put this so that it matches up, have that so that when I put a square on it, here it's at 90 degrees to the longeron. Put a line across. I put that line right the way across to the other side there, and measured back from the tailplane horizontal stabilizer forward mount to the line. 77 millimeters is what I've come up with. And then measuring just inside the skin, because I'm going to be using the same thickness skin going around the outside of this, it comes out at 268 millimeters from one side to the other. Looking at the top here, it's for it to actually match in and fare in nicely. I'm going to have a line down about there. So that's where the top of the frame is going to be. I've measured in for the bottom of the frame, so that's how much it's going to be reduced by. So I now need to get a nice arc going around here and just trim this down to meet up with that arc. Then I can bond this into position. There will be a little block going in here, and as per the plans there's going to be some 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch wood going from the longeron up to the fin leading edge here. But on the front edge I'm going to put, it doesn't really show on the plan. I think on the plan they actually cut the leading edge off and stick it to the back of the frame, but I'll have it go through. I'm going to put a small triangulated block in here to increase the bond, and then I can cut off the excess fin leading edge, get rid of that, and the top stringer for the shape of the turtle deck I will graft into this leading edge here. So just to show you how I go around creating nice sweeping curves to start off with, I've just put a block in here because I want it to be near enough 90 degrees at the top, nice and flat at the top here, and I've got my mark down here. This is clamped so it won't move around, and I've got a piece of plywood cut so the majority of the grain's going that way. It's nice and flexible that way, and I can bring this around and hold it in place like that. So I've got my nice little sweeping curve. I can now just draw around that. That's the one side. I think that's quite a pleasant curve. I will trace this onto engineering drafting paper and flick it over so I've got it on both sides. I can then trim that down to what I want it to be. I've drawn on where the 3/4 square is going to go. You'll note that it stops about 1/4 inch below the top and 1/4 inch in from the side. That's because I'm going to make bows to go around here to support the aluminium fairings. And to make sure I get everything right, I've already copied this onto the drafting parchment so that I can put that underneath the plastic sheet, put blocks on it, and laminate up the wood to make up those bows. This section here will be where the block will go between the bulkhead itself and the back of the fin. So another good reason for having this down about that 1/4 inch, so just gives a little bit more bonding area on the face of the cut face of this, with that block going against the fin. I'm going to put that block in later, so we'll probably have to clean out some of the squeeze out glue here, and I'll put the forward block in later as well. It's going to be quite fun trying to clamp this little lot up anyway. So I'm going to cut the triangular section. I'm going to sand these bits just the same way as we do for all the plywood. It's already been washed down with denatured alcohol. You can still see there that there's a little bit of a glue imprint there from the masking tape that was put on to identify it. Now I'll sand this across grain to get this already keyed up to go. There we are. Got the diagonal pieces bonded in, the bulkhead in position. This contraption section here is just to make sure that the bulkhead is kept perpendicular to the centre line, equal each side, little spaces. So anyway, I could clamp it so I didn't end up with glue going where I didn't want it to be, and bonding something I didn't want to be bonded. And there's the sort of traced shape for the bulkhead and the blocks put all the way around. And at the moment, out here in my pot with boiling water is a strip wood, which is just getting a bit of steam and a bit of boiling water into it there. So hopefully we can put it around a tight bend on the ground. There's a really quite tight radius to expect the wood to go around without it splitting. I think that's what you could commonly call success. It's flexed its way in reasonably nicely, and it's all clamped there. I'll leave that now to dry off for a couple of days before I actually resin it up and put it back into form with the resin. So right, here's the little block at the front end here, and this will be cut, the fin will actually be cut off, probably sloping up from there like that to reduce some weight. What I'll do is I'll work out how far the stringer goes down. I'll cut, probably be along that sort of line there. Here's the block section which is going to go into there like that, which helps to bond the fin leading edge into place, gives it that good contact area going down onto the ply face here and into the two uprights either side. It's not a particularly tight fit because you've got to give room for the glue. It looks like a complex joint, but it's not really that complex doing it this way. These two blocks are, I consider, very important, even though on the original plan I'm sure that the way they had this leading edge was just butted up against the ply here. That's not much of a contact area. This increases the contact area on both sides and stops the leading edge. If the tip of the fin moves from side to side, the top of the fin moves sort of like that, it puts a twisting action in the leading edge. So less about rigidity and more about increasing the glue area to reduce chance of joint failure that way. Well, while everything is curing up there, I had to just clean out where this hinge went into the rear post here. I drilled through the second side because that hadn't been done, and using one of these oscillating saws, tape there just to mark how deep I need to go, I whizzed it into the slot, and then I used a sort of modified sort of end of a hacksaw blade to rake out the sawdust that was in there. So now I've got the hinge fitted. I can put the bolts through there, just put the screws in, and there you go. That's it, just rocking backwards and forwards. That's how smooth it is. So I'm happy with that. I think we can say that's free running. Well, that's it for this week. Got the front end of the fin secured. Still a bit more work to go on that. Bit of complexity. Can't do that until we get the turtle deck sorted out. We've got the ply sides on the rear now. That is pretty much sorted. It just needs to have a final tidy up and things, which I'm going to do probably later on in next week or week after, just to give the resin a good chance to cure. After 72 hours or so, it's a lot easier to sand, and if we do it a little bit earlier, it seems to gum up paper a little bit. But we'll see what we get up to next week anyway. Bound to be something to help get the thing going forward. So bye now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. You can subscribe or even hit the little bell notification for future videos. Any comments would be appreciated, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Remember, go fly and feel the sky.